In the shadow of legends and gods, despair reigned in Athens. Every 9 years, the city's most beautiful youths were sacrificed to a fearsome monster. This cloud of fear would hang over the city until a young hero named Theseus was born. Athens' greatest hero could defeat not only a bull-headed monster, but also his own destiny. However, not every heroic story is a fairy tale with a happy ending. This was an epic tale of a champion who set out to create his own legend, only to crown even his greatest victory with sorrow. First and foremost, Theseus was no ordinary hero. In addition to being the son of the Athenian king Aegeus, he was also a descendant of Poseidon, the god of the sea. This dual lineage granted him both the wisdom of kings and the power of the gods. As a child, his mother sent him to retrieve his father's sword and sandals, which had been hidden under a massive stone. His ability to easily lift a rock that no one his age could manage was the first sign of his great heroic destiny. The people of Athens lived under a terrible curse from King Minos of Crete. The origin of this curse lay in Minos's arrogance towards Poseidon. To punish him, Poseidon placed a maddening desire for a bull in the heart of Minos's wife, Pasiphae. From this accursed union, a horrifying monster was born, the Minotaur, with the body of a man and the head of a bull. To hide this shame, Minos imprisoned the Minotaur in the Labyrinth, a maze from which no one could escape. Thus, the Minotaur was not just a monster but also an innocent victim, paying for his father's sins. As the price for this terrible curse, Athens had to send 7 young men and 7 young women to Crete every 9 years. Unable to bear this situation any longer, Theseus voluntarily joined the group of sacrifices. His father, King Aegeus, had arranged for their ship's sails to be white if Theseus was victorious over the Minotaur, but black if he perished. However, Theseus decided to travel to Crete by land rather than by sea. His aim was to prove his strength and courage before facing the Minotaur. This journey would earn him a place among legends. During his journey, Theseus came across a fearsome bandit named Sciron. Sciron would force travelers to wash his feet and then kick them off a cliff to be devoured by a monstrous turtle. Theseus pushed Sciron into his own trap, making him suffer the fate of his victims. He then encountered Procrustes, a cunning bandit who would offer travelers a place to stay, but with a gruesome condition. He would fit them to a special bed by either stretching them to fit or cutting off their legs. Theseus, using his own wits, forced Procrustes onto his bed and punished him by his own cruel methods. After this perilous journey, Theseus arrived in Crete, no longer just a tribute, but a hero whose fame had spread far and wide. This caught the attention of King Minos' daughter, the intelligent and beautiful Princess Ariadne. Deeply in love with Theseus and admiring his courage, Ariadne decided to betray her father. She gave him a sword to kill the Minotaur and a ball of thread to find his way out of the labyrinth. Trusting the thread, Theseus advanced into the dark and humid corridors of the labyrinth. The corridors were filled with the petrified statues of past victims, each one whispering that the labyrinth was a living tomb. Finally, he reached the center, where he heard the Minotaur sobbing to itself. Theseus hesitated for a moment in the dimly lit center, where the muffled sobs echoed. He was stunned by the despair of the creature he had previously only considered a terrifying monster. Gripping the sword in his hand tightly, he slowly advanced toward the source of the sound. A short while later, a formidable silhouette appeared in the darkness. Despite its massive build, the Minotaur was broken. Its great bull's head, attached to its human body, was trembling, and tears streamed from its eyes. It was bound to the rocks with chains, and its painful moans broke the silence of the labyrinth. When Theseus encountered this pitiful sight, he realized he was not just facing a monster, but a being suffering great anguish. Although the Minotaur's desperate state caused a moment of doubt in Theseus, The weight of Athens and his own destiny rested on his shoulders. Taking a deep breath, he raised his sword and prepared for the legendary battle. In that dark center, echoing with the Minotaur's sorrowful sobs, Theseus confronted the tragic union of man and beast. When the Minotaur sensed Theseus's presence, it rose with all its pain and fury. The creature's bull head was so tall it nearly touched the labyrinth ceiling, and its eyes were redder than blood. The roar that escaped its throat was powerful enough to shake the stone walls. But this was not the roar of a monster. It was the cry of a captive longing for freedom. The Minotaur lunged at Theseus as if to break its chains. Theseus, skillfully using the sword given to him by Ariadne, King Minos' daughter, evaded the first attack. The battle would be won, not just with strength, but with wits. Theseus managed to turn the Minotaur's massive size against itself. He exhausted it in the narrow corridors, making it crash into the walls with every lunge. The Minotaur's rage grew with each passing minute, shattering even the stone statues inside the labyrinth. Yet the sorrow in its heart was draining its strength. Finally, after evading the Minotaur's final charge, Theseus plunged his sword into its heart. The creature let out a last agonizing bellow and slowly collapsed to the ground. When he pulled the dagger out, not just blood but also the final drops of sorrow and shame flowed from the Minotaur's eyes. This was not the death of a monster, but the salvation of a victim. Victorious, Theseus left the Minotaur's lifeless body behind. Ariadne's thread guided him through the dark and complex paths of the labyrinth, leading him to the sunlight and freedom outside. Following the thread given by Ariadne, Theseus emerged from the labyrinth's complex passages and met his lover. However, their departure from Crete was not easy. Fearing Minos' rage, Theseus and the other Athenian youths secretly boarded the ship at night. When Minos learned of his daughter's betrayal and the Minotaur's death the next morning, he was filled with great fury, but Theseus and his companions had already sailed away. During the journey, Theseus saw the god Dionysus in a dream. Dionysius told Theseus that Ariadne belonged to him and that he must leave her on the island of Naxos. Unable to defy the will of the gods, Theseus, with great sorrow, left Ariadne on the island while she was sleeping and continued on his way. When Ariadne awoke, she found herself alone on the desolate island and was overcome with despair. However, shortly after, Dionysus and his retinue arrived to comfort Ariadne and make her a goddess. With the pain of leaving Ariadne and the weariness of slaying the Minotaur in his heart, Theseus sailed toward Athens. His father, King Aegeus, was waiting for his son's return with hope. It had been arranged that if Theseus was victorious over the Minotaur, the ship would return with a white sail. However, Theseus, overcome with grief and fatigue, forgot this important detail, and the ship approached the shores of Athens with black sails. Seeing the black sails from afar, King Aegeus believed his son was dead. Unable to bear his great sorrow, the old king threw himself from the highest point of the city into the sea, ending his life. Thus, the Aegean Sea was named after King Aegeus. When Theseus returned to Athens, he was devastated by his father's death. He was no longer just the hero who had defeated the Minotaur, but also the one who had caused his father's demise. Though the people of Athens greeted him with great joy, the pain in Theseus' heart never faded. Theseus, who succeeded his father to the throne, ruled wisely and justly, bringing great prosperity to Athens. However, his encounter with the Minotaur and his forced abandonment of Ariadne remained as deep wounds he carried with him for the rest of his life. A thread guided Theseus on his way out of the labyrinth. On my storytelling journey, you are that thread. By subscribing to my channel and liking the video, we can continue to explore these kinds of epic stories together. Your support will ensure our journey continues.